Okay.
Let's see. All right. Hello, everyone. We are here again with another story. My guest today, Lina Pomasa, is a general surgeon. She is a Lao surgeon, the offsprings of Lao refugee. And so we're going to hear through her the stories of her mother's journey and her grandma's journey to America and everything that she knows that she has heard through them, and also sharing her success story as a Lao surgeon. So, hello, Lina. Thank you again for joining. I am so excited to talk to you and to hear your unique story. So, tell us a little bit about you and where you're born, and let's start from the beginning.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Lina Pombongsa. I grew up in Rochester, New York. So my mom came over to the States when she was about 14, 15 years old. She ended up meeting my dad when she went to New York, and I was born there. And then when I was about 10 or so, we ended up moving to Michigan. We moved to a town called Zeeland, Michigan. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, very country. So it was not.
But it has a nice beach, though.
Me too. It was a big culture shock. I remember coming to town and seeing like tractor crossing signs.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, this is interesting decoration for a town. Not
Way from New York to, yeah, that would be a culture shock.
Yeah. And then the house that we ended up living in Michigan was like right next to a farm too. So moving from like metropolitan upstate New York to Zeeland, like farm town country.
Wow.
It was a big culture shock. And yeah, the population is probably 95% white. So yeah, growing up and not knowing, or people not knowing like what Laos is and just, like never heard of it before. That was, an interesting experience growing up there.
Wow.
And then after that, I ended up going to college at Michigan State University, and then took about 4 or so years off trying to work a little bit to raise enough money to apply to medical school. Medical school was always my dream. And then I had my daughter during that time too, Evelyn. She's 6 years old now. And then I started medical school in 2017, finished that last year, and now I'm in my first year of general surgery residency, about to finish up my first year. And yeah, it's been quite the journey for sure.
That is so amazing. Your parents must be so proud of you. Just amazing. So tell me a little bit about your mother. When did she come here to America?
I think it was, the 80s that she came over. She was 14, 15 years old. She came over because a family from a church in Harrison, Michigan had sponsored my grandma and her kids to come to the States. She didn't know any English whatsoever, and was like thrown into like public school, not only just like trying to like learn all these subjects, but not knowing English either. So I have no idea like how she did it. But it was just like a crash course in like American culture. And yeah, I could not even imagine how difficult that must have been.
Oh, wow. So did she finish like high school here then after that?
Yep, she did. Yeah, she went to high school here in Michigan. And she also was the oldest of like all her siblings. And my grandma was also a single mom at that time too.
Wow.
So, so my mom really had to step up at an early age and help her take care of her younger siblings.
Wow. So your mom was the oldest of four.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did she have to try to figure out high school, but she had to help your mom out.
Yep.
And with the siblings. Oh my goodness. Wow, your mom. I got to meet your mom. Oh my goodness.
You love that.
What a brave woman. So were you this is something that she basically knew English because she went to high school.
Mm-hmm.
But when she was in high school, I've heard of other children, and like we had to do it as well, but translate for her mom.
Oh, yes.
Like
Yeah.
translate for your grandma and
Uh-huh.
help your grandma.
Yeah, she did a lot of translating for her. Like every time she would go to doctor's appointments or things like that, she would have to translate for her mom. It's just hard because, like, I'm sure realize too that there's a lot of things that don't translate from like
Yeah,
English to Lao, and so it's like you're like trying to convey this concept in Lao, but there's no word or idea for it, so
exactly.
it's like difficult and especially in like medical terminology too, because I remember taking my grandma to appointments and things like that. And I'm like,
Oh
how
yeah.
do I say this in Lao? And I'm not like as fluent as I wish I was in Lao too. So
Yeah.
it has been
Yeah.
interesting for sure. But I think that also is like, it gives me a lot of perspective going into medicine too, because it's not just Lao culture that experiences this, but other
Yes.
cultures that have different languages and how medicine can be translated, and that can affect
Mhm.
care just because of the
Exactly.
barrier alone.
Exactly. No, it's really scary, and especially for our Lao elders
Hmm.
who do not have the children or someone to help them or
Yeah.
translate. I remember a time that I was with my mom when we lived in Michigan. She had a bad fall in Elgin, in Illinois, and no one was here to really care for her. So I basically took her in to rehab in
Mhm.
Michigan, and we were at Metro Hospital.
Oh,
And I'm
nice. That's wait,
yeah,
in Grand Rapids?
yeah, Grand
That's
is it
what's
Grand?
training right now. That's my hospital.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh! So we were there, and I'm like, Emat, do you know why they're gonna take you downstairs? Because they're gonna check. They were gonna check ultrasound for her stomach to see like
Hmm.
what's going on or anything like that.
Hmm.
And she had no idea. And so I said, "Do you know why they're taking you out of here?" Oh yeah, they're gonna like, oh, I forgot. No, they're gonna check her brain, right? Do like a brain scan. She's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. They're gonna do like an ultrasound of my stomach, she says. So like it's like one of those things where
Yeah.
she would just nod her head
Right.
and say
Yeah.
that she understands them, but then she really doesn't. And
Hmm.
then she doesn't know what her care is when she leaves the hospital. So
Right.
it's
Exactly.
so crazy. So, what are some of the stories, if you can remember it, that your parents have told you about when she was growing up in America? Anything that resonates with you?
I can't think of anything that stands out completely, but I just remember her talking about the trips and things like that, and the experiences that she had, like in high school, like being like the foreign girl, and
Mm-hmm.
um, having this like language barrier with like her friends and things like that. And how
Oh,
difficult that was, and um, I remember her telling me like she really wanted to do volleyball, but because of like her responsibilities at home, like,
oh,
she couldn't. She had to go home and help out, food, and take care of her siblings and all this stuff. So like having that extra responsibilities kind of took away a lot of those experiences from her.
yeah, yeah. Your mom came at an age 14. Like,
Mhm.
I just can't imagine because growing up, all she knew was Laos.
Yep.
Like the culture, the everything, like, and then coming to America, like, would be interesting to like hear her story. She speaks English, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
She
would
speaks
be so
fluent English.
interesting to like get her story. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I would think she would absolutely love that. So I can definitely
Yeah,
send it to
please arrange
you.
that. We'll get both
Yeah.
of you guys on the front cover. Because it's really like I this she would be the first person that I would have interviewed that came at like 14, like already like living in Laos and knowing, the rest of them were a little bit older, like 20, 30 with kids, but someone
Right.
like that had to come into high school, that would be a really interesting mix up into the stories.
Mhm.
So how was it growing up for you
Um,
being Lao in America?
yeah, it was interesting for sure. Kind of like how I mentioned earlier about like living in metropolitan upstate New York, then moving to a very like countryside of Michigan. Oh my goodness. So as like being a young kid, I remember growing up and having like a diverse friend group,
Yeah.
with like my core group of friends in like elementary school or whatever. There was me, and then there was my friend Maggie, who was Hispanic, and then there was my friend Alexis, who was Black, and then my friend Hannah, who was a redheaded white girl, and like just not even realizing the concept of race or like that
Yeah.
anything was different between us really. And then coming to Zeeland, Michigan, where the population is predominantly white. People were not familiar that Laos was even a country, and they're like, oh, where's that? Is that an island somewhere? Blah, blah,
Yes.
blah. Like, no, it's like landlocked in Southeast Asia.
It's the country that US bombs for 9 years. Hello. It's the heaviest bombed country per capita.
No, it's such the like history between America and Laos is so intertwined, but like nobody has ever heard of it and realized like what has happened. And
Yeah.
it was I think it was difficult growing up in terms of like going to like middle school, high school, and things like that, and not
Yeah.
really seeing people like myself. We moved to thankfully an area where there were other like Lao families already
Yeah.
established. So of course we had like our community and whatnot. But I just remember experiencing like very racist things growing up here and thinking that
Yeah.
was normal. And
Wow. What were some of the things that you experienced?
well, just like like bringing Lao food for lunch to
Oh,
school, like, and then people being like, "What's that?" Or like, "That looks gross," or "Wow, that like
yeah.
smells weird," and just like things like that. And then like being embarrassed about like
Mhm.
bringing our food for lunch and like being like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I'm just gonna get hot lunch from now on," and like things, yeah,
Aw. Aw, but you love your Lao food.
no. Now, I mean, like, growing up and like looking back at it, and it's like, man, like screw those like petty little high school kids. But when you're growing up and you're a teenager and
Yeah.
you're trying to figure yourself out, it's not quite as easy. And
There's
then,
that mix of identity, like, where do I fit in?
hmm
Being raised with Lao refugee parents, and
hmm
then trying to figure out, okay, I know that I have to follow the rules that I have at home, but then my American friends, they're kind of doing different things. So how
yep.
do I fit in? It's that identity crisis, like, so is that something that you may have kind of gone through, or your mom was pretty Americanized?
Oh no, I think I absolutely went through that. I mean, I guess comparatively to some Lao families, my mom is pretty Americanized, but also she like really did like try to hang on to our culture and everything too.
Yeah.
And I think I really struggled with that, bicultural identity crisis at that
Yeah.
age too. And part of that is like I don't know, looking back at it, I'm like, man, I wish, my mom spoke to me more in Lao so I would be more fluent. Like I can
Yeah.
pick up like basic conversation and carry on very like simple conversation. But I just remember like trying to like fit in with my white friends at school and things like that, and them not understanding, and then me feeling like I have to like hide my culture from my friends because
Yeah.
they would judge me or whatnot. So that was definitely some growing pains for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then you also grew up with some Lao friends when you
hmm
moved to Holland and met some more Lao people in Holland.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom's like extended side of the family is all here, the Vongpachans. So in our neighborhood, we actually lived like two houses down from like my Uncle Phil, and then their neighbor was like my cousin Louis, Tintin, and Tom. And so like it was nice because like growing up as kids and like being in the same neighborhood, and we would all like run to each other's houses all the time and hang out
Aw.
and things like that. So honestly, I don't think childhood would have been like as fun or like as like nice to go through if it wasn't for them having them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing with our families too, like the Lau family. They're always so close, and even though some of them are not blood family, like if
Mhm.
you're Lao, you're family. You know, like
Exactly. Yep.
that's
Yeah.
just how we roll. Like, it's
Yep.
like, and then it's always the parties and the eating, and
Mhm.
come on over and eat.
Yep.
I have a cousin that lives in Laos, a few family members that live in Holland. My
Yeah.
cousin Casey, I don't know if you know her, Cow.
Mm.
And Tim, her husband's a DJ. His name is Tim. They call him DJ Sanook.
Yeah.
They're actually here visiting. And we're supposed to go to dim sum later today.
Oh, fun.
Yes. So tell me about the doctor, your dream. You've always dreamt of being a doctor. Was there something that triggered you to want to become a doctor? I know that's one of the things that our parents like, we want you to be a doctor,
I
but no
know.
one really actually does it. Or marry one. We want
Yeah.
you to be one or marry one, but no one actually does it. And you did. So
Yeah.
what was it that was the motivating factor?
I know. I feel like most Asian parents want you to either become like a doctor or a
Or
lawyer, and they
marry
like
one? Yeah.
or yeah. But for me, I like when I reflect back on it, I don't know if it was any one singular moment, but
Mhm.
um, going through school, my favorite subjects was like biology and science and math, and I really like enjoyed like learning about just like life in general. Like at one
Yeah.
point, I think I considered being a dolphin trainer or a veterinarian. And then I
Nice.
was like, man, it's really hard to take care of things that can't talk to you. So, and then, yeah, just being like really interested in biological sciences and the human body and things like that.
Wow.
And I just remember taking this like school assessment test in like middle school or something like that, where
Yeah.
they kind of like have you take it to see what your interests are in terms of
Yeah.
like careers growing up. And I remember like one of the top choices was like pediatrician or carpenter. And I'm like,
What? That's two totally different ends of the
I
spectrum.
know, exactly. And I was like, oh, pediatrician, that's interesting. Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, that's kind of like where it all began and like kind of when I started like working towards that. And I think part of it too was that I never saw anybody who looked like me in the field of medicine.
Yes.
Like we don't have, other Lao people in medicine that
Mhm.
could show us through the process or anything like that. So all of that I had to like figure out on my own, and
Wow.
especially because like going to like being first generation and like being the first one to go to college, like I had to figure that all out on my own too. Um, didn't have anyone in our community that like
That was even motivated.
yeah,
Not a lot are
yeah.
motivated
Um,
either.
like in our community, I just felt like a lot of people had different interests and different priorities, and a lot of it kind of was more in like the social realm of life
Mhm.
and things like
Mhm.
that. And so um, I think that's also a part of like where my like bicultural identity
Mhm.
struggle was as
Yeah.
well, because it seemed like like many people around my age in the Lao community here, they were so focused on like the social aspect of life and like um,
Mhm.
the whole like idea of having a career and pursuing more was just not quite as a
Mhm.
priority. And for
Right.
me, like knowing through all the things that my mom struggled through, and
Yeah.
it's like I can't, I don't want to like live my life and put all the work that my parents went through to
Oh,
be it all for nothing, because obviously they come here hoping
yeah.
like a better life. And
Yeah.
um, so I was like, yeah, I want to go to college and I want to be a doctor. And it was
So awesome.
a lot more difficult than I think I mentally knew. And a lot of that had to do with like, being first generation, not
Mhm.
having people to hold your hand through the process, and
Yeah.
having to jump those like cultural hurdles.
Yeah. So that must have been really challenging not to have someone to lean on and someone to be that role model. And you had to figure out on your own. But you, I believe, your mom pretty much handed you like her fighting spirit and her, need to survive. I think she handed that down to you in the silver platter. And,
For
and like,
sure.
through her, I think she pushes you in that sense. And yeah, what an amazing woman. And you to bring you, to where you are today. Um, what were one of the biggest challenges that you had in trying to get your, finish up your schooling to become a surgeon?
One of the biggest challenges for me was um, from a financial standpoint. Like, I feel like this country, it's built in a way where only the rich can get richer because you think about it, like going to college, that costs money. Being
Yeah.
able to afford to stay in college, like that costs even more money. And it
Mhm.
really is like built like college and then even medical school too is like made for people who have money. And so when I was in college, I had to work full time in order to pay my bills in
Wow.
college. And one of the struggles with that is like, obviously, there's a finite amount of time. And so working to pay my bills, working over 40 hours a week took away from my studies. And
Wow.
so I wasn't able to study as much as I would ideally like to in some of the courses that
Mhm.
were pivotal to applying to
Mhm.
medical school. So that did affect my GPA and my grades and things like that. But at the same time, it's like, like I physically can't stay in college if I can't pay my bills. And,
Yeah.
you know, our parents aren't rich, like they're here, working blue
Mhm.
collar jobs and things like that. And it's like, and then there's like a GPA cutoff to applying to medical
Yeah.
school. And it's like people who have the
Oh,
luxury of time or
wow.
people for money and things like that. So I think that was a big hurdle for me for applying to medical school. Um, but at the same time, it's like I have so much more to offer in
Yeah.
terms of like perspective and life experiences and things like that. And sometimes that's hard to convey on paper when you're trying to apply
Mhm.
to school. And so, yeah, that I think would be my biggest hurdle. And then finding out I was in a relationship for a couple years, a serious relationship, and then finding out
Mhm.
I was pregnant. And then that was right about the time that I was applying to medical school too.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the person that I was with, he wasn't supportive of my ambitions to going to medical school and things like that. He just wanted me to be a stay-at-home wife and I was just like, no, like I don't care if you're making $2 million a year. Like I'm not gonna be
Oh
like
my
a stay-at-home
gosh.
wife. So yeah, and then that relationship didn't go forward, and so I was also a single mom at that point too. And I
Oh
was
my gosh, girl.
like, oh my God, do I got accepted into medical school, and I found out I was pregnant, like, and going to have to be a single mom at the same time. And it was like, gosh, like, what do I do? It's like right now
Wow.
I feel like a statistic, like being a single mom and um all my life I've been working towards like trying to achieve more, do more for my family, do more for our
Yeah.
culture, and go to medical school. And I almost felt like I had to pick one or the other. And I was just like, I was like, I don't want to just be known as a statistic and have to like give up this dream. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to do this single mom thing and medical school at the same time. And my mom was super supportive of that, and she helped me raise my daughter. And she's honestly like, I couldn't have done any of this without her. Sorry, I'm like getting emotional, but
Yes, I know. Every time this is why it's a passion project because every time I talk to or think of it, I think of our parents and their struggles, and that's why I'm doing this. So people can see like, where we're coming from, and and the struggles of our parents and why we're successful because of them and their strength, so it's okay. I was a single mom too before I got remarried. So my husband took me with 2 kids. So there's hope for you, hon. I was a single mom with 2 kids. Yeah. So, oh my goodness. Yeah. So thank goodness for our moms, because my mom did, help a lot too when the girls were little. So yeah, that's why we need to talk to your mom, the incredible woman.
She is. She's amazing for sure.
So that was really a hard choice. I mean, you were pretty much like between a rock and a hard space because you were like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. The guy just, the baby's father just like left me because I want to pursue my dreams. I picked my dreams. So what was that motivating factor that you're just like, you know what, it's all or nothing, I'm just gonna go for it? One of the things you mentioned, of course, was you didn't want to be the statistics. What else? Was there something else that just gave you that strength, that superpower to just like, I'm just gonna go full force and do this?
I think a big part of that was like the people in my life at that time. I remember telling my mom that I was pregnant because the relationship ended even before I found out. Because I was like, this is something that I want to do. And if you're not there to support me, then you're not going to be part of my life to hold me back,
Wow, I love it. You are a strong woman.
Thank you. And I just remember her kind of like saying like, how are you going to do this? And I'm going to support you, whatever decision that you make, both regarding the pregnancy and going to medical school and things like that. And I had very supportive friends and family, the same ones that I grew up, the same, Lao family that I grew up with when I was here. And it's just like I have, worked so hard to get to this place. And I was like, I can't imagine going through life saying that I didn't try, at least, and I didn't want to grow up feeling like, well, what if? And
Yeah.
so I was like, if anybody can get through this and do it, it's me. And I have my mom's fighting spirit. So I was,
yes, you do.
I was like, I definitely have to try.
Wow.
So yeah, I just like got in touch with, other people who have kind of gone through similar processes. Like I'm not the first single mom or single parent to go through medical school. So I kind of reached out to those folks and heard their story, and like that gave me strength and like perseverance to keep going on and things like that too. So yeah, I just wanted it bad enough that I'm like, you can always make it work.
Yeah.
Make it work. It's not going to be easy and it's not going to always be successful, but if you want something bad enough, you find a way to make it work.
Definitely. Definitely. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome and inspiring. So the day comes and you finally walk across the stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's going through your mind at that moment? Like,
oh my gosh, it's just like a lot of emotions.
yeah.
Just like reflecting on like all the hard work and the heartache and everything like that, going through the whole process, because gosh, medical school is just a beast in itself. And it's like, you conceptually like think of like, oh yeah, I know it's like, it sounds really hard and I'm sure it's really hard, but like you really don't know how hard it is until you go through it. It's like no matter how much you mentally prepare yourself for, it's never the extent that it actually is. And just going through that and having to kind of struggle with the balance between like being a good med student or being a good mom. And many times you can't be both at the same time. And so that was a big struggle for me too. And still, like, again, in this situation, I think my grades could have been better. But I also have my responsibilities as a parent. And so I had to kind of, take that and do what I can with it. And there was a point in time that I didn't think that I was going to match into surgery. Surgery is a very competitive field in medicine. And a lot of times in the field of medicine, depending on what specialty you choose, your grades are what gets you to that place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we have to take board exams and things like that. And your scores on these board exams kind of translate to your competitiveness in the field. So there was a period of time where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to match into surgery. And I tried really hard to like a different specialty, a specialty that would be more like conducive to work-life family balance, but I could not. I could not find anything that I liked enough where I wouldn't feel like, okay, I'm just going to a job and coming home,
Yeah.
So that was a struggle for me too. And at one point I was almost like, gosh, I don't know if I'm going to match into surgery or match into a specialty. And the way that the medical school and residency match process work is like different than any other career. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but what happens is you apply to all these places, and then based off of your application, they'll offer you an interview. And then you go and interview, and then at the end of like the interviewing season, you rank your programs from like first to last. And then they also, on the other hand, are ranking their applicants from first to last. And it goes into like this computer algorithm where it matches you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you really don't have that much control over where you're going to be. And like, that's the only place that you get offered a job, and you either go or you don't have a job. So it's
wow.
It's not as simple as it would like other careers where you say like, oh, I finished my degree, I apply to all these places, I get different job offers, and I can choose where I go. It's not like,
wow.
And then sometimes people who don't match, they don't end up with jobs, and you can't go and practice medicine without having residency training at most places. So it's like you go through all of this hard work, and if you don't match and get a job, it's like you're kind of like SOL, because
oh my goodness,
translate into being able to do anything else. So yeah.
Wow, I didn't know
process.
that. I didn't know that. So then how did you end up where you're at?
I ended up matching my place in the match process. I found good mentors, and one of my letter writers was tied to the program that I matched at now at Metro. And I think they like, getting to know me as a person and like hearing my stories and the things that I've been through really resonated with them. And so they ended up ranking me high on their match list, and I ranked them high. And so that's how I was able to match. But I only had 2 programs on my match list, whereas like you're supposed to have like 10 to have like a chance of like matching, a good percent of matching. And that was like terrifying to me, because I was like, I only have 2 programs on my list. Like my chances of matching are like less than like 10% technically.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so that was and so when I found out that I had matched there, oh my God, it was like a huge relief. It was like,
wow.
And then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be a surgeon.
Oh my gosh. So as a general surgeon, tell me a little bit about that. Like, what is a day in the life of your duties like?
Yeah, so I'm still in training. And the first year of training is always the hardest. We're working roughly on average 12 hours a day.
Wow.
And then I work every other weekend as well. So I only have 4 days off a month on average. So it's a lot of, it's a lot of learning, a lot of like crash courses to medicine. And because you go from being in the role of a student, not having much responsibility, to being like, now, like, hey, like now you're trained a doctor and you're responsible for these people's lives. And if Like, somebody's gonna reach out to you and be like, doctor, what do we do?
Exactly.
God, it's terrifying, but at the same time, it's like gratifying. It's just a lot of growing pains, and but it's also like super humbling at the same time.
Yes.
You know, being in that space and having that privilege to be able to help people out and take care of them, and yeah, so it's been quite the ride.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I remember, and maybe, well, how has it been your experience at Metro Hospital though? Like, you love it, or
I do.
This is like offline story. I won't share this live,
Okay.
but I had an experience there with my mom, and I actually in the middle of the night took her out of Metro.
Oh, okay.
I had a bad experience with her at Metro because what happened was um, I had her living with me, and she needed 24-hour care.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, she wasn't eating. She was not eating. She wasn't swallowing.
Mm-hmm.
And for almost a month, she wasn't eating. And so I kept bringing her into Metro, and they kept on releasing me from the emergency room. Oh no, she's fine. Her vitals are fine. Take her home. And I'm like in the ER and like, okay, this is our 5th time coming. If she hasn't ate in so many days, I said, if I take her home, she's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this to them, and I fought for my mom. And I said, you guys need to keep her here. I don't care what you do. I'm not taking her home to die in my house. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was like so scary at the same time while we were waiting for them to make their decision.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, it took them 8 hours in the ER to like come back to tell us they're going to keep her.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I haven't recorded. Okay, so you understand this because you know you're a child of a loud person.
Mm-hmm.
But we're sitting there, and she goes in Laos. She's like, I said, Mom, what are you looking at? And she kept looking up like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes, Hyundai P.
Wait.
Yes, in Metro. In the ER.
Why?
She's laying there. She's like, Hyundai P.
Hey. Oh my
What do
God.
you mean? Yeah, she goes, P. I said, what does it look like? Tell it to go away. And she's like, Man dum dum noi. It's a short little black demon that's over her, that's trying to kill her. I'm trying to take her with, I guess.
Yeah.
And I said, no, Mom, tell it to go away, you know. And then all of a sudden she got possessed.
Stop.
In Metro Hospital.
What happened?
She got possessed. She was like, me and my daughter were just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter's 26 now, but it was, you know, when we lived in Grant, Michigan. My mom was laying on her bed, and then she turned into a different voice. She looks over at us, and she's like, he's so fine, my.
Oh my God.
She's like, you guys pussy on fire.
Oh,
and she never talks like that.
Yeah.
My daughter ran out the room.
Oh my God, I want to.
So you can see the curtain just flying.
Oh my God, and what happened after that? Did it go away?
See, I don't know if it went away, but I recorded it. I still have a recording.
Oh my God.
And then I checked like the room. When in the recording, the room was very fuzzy and black, like, you know.
Uh-huh.
And then I checked because she was there like a week before, and I said I took a video too, and I look at that video because I'm thinking maybe it's just the lighting here in ER. Yeah. That room didn't have the same like black fuzzy thing going on.
Gosh.
And yeah, so then they came back. They came back and told us, okay, we're gonna keep her, but just for observation. Then we took her upstairs, and she was on the 6th floor.
Oh gosh.
Like 6 something. And then the nurse came and did her vitals again. And they're like, ooh, she's super dehydrated. Like all this stuff was going on.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did they lie to us down there? because in my mind, I'm like, are they being racist? Because there's a lot of discrimination and racism in the medical too.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, are they just racist, and sending us, home because they didn't want to care for her? So that just all was going through my mind. And then the next morning, we had this lady. She's like a social worker. I don't know if she's still there, but she had white hair, really short, curly. She was short, little chubby. She opens the door instead of like greeting herself and saying, "Hi, I'm the social worker. I'm such and such." She opens the door, looks and sees that we're Asian.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that came out of her mouth, "Do you speak any English?"
Oh
Like
my
that. I'm
gosh.
serious. And so I said, yes. I stood up and I said, yes, I do. How can I help you? So she came
Wow.
in and she was actually trying to talk me into killing my mom.
In what
This
way?
social worker, she was like, so your mom, look at her condition. She's been bedridden for like a long time, because I was trying to get them to get the feeding tube for her
Yeah.
because she hasn't ate in a month. I'm like, you guys need to. I said, I remember a doctor had talked to us about a feeding tube, and he said we can decide if and when we want to do it, because at the time my mom said no, we don't. I said no, I don't want to do it. So they had it in the note that I told them no.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'm like, we want the feeding tube.
Yeah.
And so the lady was like, are you sure? Because she has, she's been bedridden for a long time. That's not a good quality of life. Like, why don't you just let her go naturally and just let her pass? And so I looked at her, and in the meantime,
Mm-hmm.
like, my mom can hear all this. She can
Yeah.
speak, she can hear you. And
Yeah.
my mom's sitting there like, I want some fried chicken. So she wants to eat. She
Yeah.
wants to live. And then the nurse came in, and the nurse was just like, well, Tina got up. I helped her go brush her teeth and stuff, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so, and then the social worker kept asking us, like, so what religion are you guys? Where are you from? And all this stuff. I said, what does that have to, I know that's part of your job. I said, but what does that have to do with anything? I don't know what my mom's religion is. I don't know. Ask her. She can talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, we are going to put the feeding tube regardless. I said, so she's trying to talk us out of it. And she got mad that I wouldn't go along with her plan. And she got so mad. She jumped up and she said, oh, whatever. I tried, and walked out.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
so when I called one of my girlfriends who's a nurse at Spectrum downtown,
Mm-hmm.
that's when that's when my girlfriend had explained to me, like, Laura, you don't have to keep your mom there.
Mm-mm.
And I said, okay. So I dragged her in her wheelchair and I carried her into my car.
Oh my.
After I had them discharge her, it was like 2 a.m. by the time they finally discharged her. I like pulled my car up. I put her in a wheelchair. I carried her because she couldn't physically walk. So
Right.
I carried her to my car and brought her downtown. And right away, they planned her surgery for the feeding tube.
Okay.
And she lived, after that, like she lived, 4 more years, before she naturally passed in her sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh my
that
God.
was my experience with Metro.
I am so sorry.
Oh no, it's not your fault. I
Yeah.
mean,
No,
it was just,
it's frustrating though, but that's like one of the reasons why I'm like, I need to be in medicine.
yes,
Stuff like that happens, and you need people there to advocate for you, like, and it's like they don't understand because they come from a different cultural background, and that's why they make the jokes like in, what is it, Crazy Rich Asians, where they're like, this is why Americans put their parents in nursing homes because they don't love them enough, and like stuff like that. You know what I mean? But like they just don't understand the
yeah,
difference, and like
yeah,
yeah, what our priorities are and what our goals are and things like
right.
that. Uh,
Yeah, like, yeah, and our priorities are our parents who risked their lives for us,
mhm.
and ancestors and stuff. And so they don't realize that, because they were like, oh, I'll just put him in a nursing home. But no, I sacrificed my mom's last 4 years. I've quit my job to watch her. I've left my free apartment. I used to manage, also I used to run Ramblewood Apartments. So I
Oh,
ran like
okay.
1,700 apartment units there, and I had a free townhouse. But because of the steps, I had to give up a free townhouse to go rent a place, you know. So it's like I did sacrifice, but that's because of what she has done for me, you
Right.
know. And so yeah, so but then for that lady to do that, I was like, oh my goodness, you know. And so but they took care of us, you know, at Spectrum. But I'm so glad to have you be in there in that space where you can be the inner ears and eyes to be able to observe, so that kind of mistreatment does not happen to people of color or Asian people, or, you know. And so that you're there to make sure that our people are not taken advantage of, and that there's the racism. It is strong. And so sometimes the worst ones are the invisible ones, right? The invisible racism that happens, that you don't know, it's disguised, but their intent is to hurt and not to save lives. It's to, like, because the hatred runs so deep, it's like, oh, whatever. Well, we just won't give them their meds. We'll just let, you know, like that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I'm so grateful that you made that decision, and you fight and all that.
Unfortunately, you still see that kind of stuff everywhere. I mean, you know, no place is like free of things like that. And I still see it. And you know, that's why I like advocate for those patients, or like call people out on the things that they're saying and doing. And when I like notice that they're treating certain patients differently because of their background, I feel more compelled to take more responsibility for their care. And
have you observed that kind of stuff before, like while you're either there at Metro or anywhere else?
I have. I remember as a medical student, there was one particular experience that really kind of like struck a bone with me. There was a surgical resident that I was on rotation with, and she was a white female, and I was at the burn unit, and the patient was a Black patient, and he was coming in for his like repeat appointment, his follow up, and he was saying, you know, like the oxycodone didn't really help me with my pain management, but the muscle relaxer, the gabapentin, he's like, that really helped me. Like that, I feel like that did the most. And he was wondering if he could get, you know, a renewed prescription for that. And then what she took away from our interaction with that patient was that he was trying to get more narcotics. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, he specifically said that the oxy does nothing for him and he doesn't want it. And he just wanted a refill of his muscle relaxer. But like, obviously the only reason why she's saying that is because she has this like underlying bias, you know? And if the patient were white, I don't think she would have heard that, or, you know, she would have misread the situation. And I remember her going and talking to the attending about it and saying, like, coming off with this attitude, like, oh, he's just seeking drugs. And I was like burning up on the inside, but like, you know, being a medical student, like I don't have, you know, a lot of sway in things, and I'm like at the bottom of the totem pole, and it's like a lot of times you're just like, you don't feel like your voice is heard. But I was like, I think he was saying that he wanted more of the gabapentin and not the oxy. And he doesn't want he didn't seem like he really wanted the narcotic. And I just remember the attending, who was also a white male, kind of just like brushing my comment off, because he went into the patient's room with this very like guarded attitude. And I'm just like watching this unfold. Like the attending physician is like making it sound like, well, you know, kind of like coming off like, I don't know if you need a new prescription of medications, blah, blah. And it wasn't until like 15 minutes into the conversation that the patient like made him realize, like, no, I just want a renewal of like the gabapentin. Oxy's not doing anything for him. And it was like a light bulb like clicked. And I was just so frustrated, because I'm like, I know I'm just a medical student right now, but like, if you would have listened to what I had to say before going into the room and wasting 15 minutes dinking around, like, and not having this, like, walking in with his bias, like, you would have, like, realized that. And, like, to think that, like, that patient's care would have been worse off, if this
Mhm.
doctor was like, oh, I don't want to prescribe you more pain meds. And this guy is like working, he works as a welder and ended up pouring hot metal on his,
Oh no.
how he ended up getting hurt. And I was like, he like needs this, like he's like a hard
Mhm.
man, like you shouldn't be depriving him of the adequate care that you would have given somebody else who didn't look like him. And so it's just
Yeah.
like things like
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
just make me like reiterate and make me feel like I need to be in this space. So
Yes. Yes, we need more of you. I've had to deal with that too because prior to quitting my corporate job in 2019, I worked in the medical field as well. More so on a management level. I was a regional manager for Clear Choice, which is oral surgery. So prosthodontist. And so I would travel all over the country to help doctors how to make millions. So
mhm,
how to make $1 million practices. So I would teach them on their like sales, and I'll teach them on their communication style and their skills.
mhm,
And so I would observe those types of things too with the doctors that I would work with. And I actually ended up getting one fired because of his racism. And it was one in Chicago that I worked. It was one of my centers that I was
mhm,
over. And so I had observed on many occasions of him
mhm,
speaking really down on Black patients
mhm.
and that were coming in. And so that's why the center was failing, because part of my job was to come in and save it, right?
Yeah.
And so turn it around. And my immediate observation was the reason this center is about to close its doors is because you have a racist doctor, and the
Yeah.
culture of it is following that racist doctor. And a majority of the clients that are in Chicago,
For
because
people of
Chicago
color.
is a melting
Yeah.
pot, probably 80% of our clients coming to the Chicago area was Black. And
Mhm.
so this doctor would talk down on them. He probably in his mind doesn't think there's Black millionaires. And so, but he didn't think they had enough money because the procedures like $20,000, $50,000,
Mhm.
procedures for surgery. You should go into oral surgeon. Next, go to oral surgery. So the procedures were like, you know, I would sell like $30,000 to $60,000 surgery packages for
Mhm.
clients. And so every time, like one time in the morning huddle, he was like talking about the clients that were coming in.
Mhm.
And he was like, I don't even know what, I've never seen them in my life. And these kind of people, he's like, where did all these people coming from? The closest I've ever got to them was on TV,
Oh my goodness.
like talking about broke Black people, right? So
Wow.
he was like, where are all these people coming from? And the closest I've ever got to them is on TV. And
Wow.
even prior to him starting, they hired
Mhm.
him. But then prior to him, I've heard horror stories of the doctor before, because the consultant that worked with that doctor was still there. And she
Mhm.
said that doctor was even more racist, and that when she would bring the client's like surgery chart to her, to him, to
Mhm.
the doctor would ask, is he Black, or what color is he, and stuff like that. And then if it was a Black guy, she said that he would put a monkey face on their like pictures.
Wow. That is
It's
ridiculous. I just like
terrible. It's terrible, and
that's
it exists.
horrible.
Yeah, it's so horrible. And his wife wasn't any better. Like one time she came, we had to go to like a Christmas party, and we didn't because we didn't even end up going. Me and three other girls, we went and had our cocktails at the John Hancock building, and
Mhm.
we during our Christmas party, and sent them pictures of where we were. We didn't want to join them. And so
I wouldn't want to hang out with those folks
yeah, I don't want to
either.
hang out with those racist people. So the whole team went, but we're like, here, we're enjoying ourselves over here.
Yeah.
His wife wasn't any better. Like she came in, she was waiting for us, and she sat in the reception desk, and we have like our screenshot, and we have our desk screen. It has like different clients' pictures and stuff, different patients with their teeth done. And then all of a sudden, a black guy comes on, and she's like, "Ew!" Like this. Like, as soon as he comes on, "Ew! Why would they put that white teeth on that dark black man?"
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and what's even, and I even had like another staff also like fired because she was racist. Like it was so crazy. And then another dental assistant, which she's so quiet and so like, I loved Kelly. I was so shocked to hear this from her. But she also said something when I walked by. She was with the other surgery assistants, and so I overheard her talking about how her boyfriend is a Chicago cop, and that my boyfriend, well, her boyfriend and his cop friends, they would go and plant things in the hood where black people stayed, and so they would go and plant things in the hood on purpose to get their cars booted and to get this. She was like, they do that on purpose because they hate their effing guts. Like she was saying this out in the
out in the open for everyone.
Open, where they thought they were okay but I heard it. So who else heard it if I heard it? They probably thought they were safe because they were in like the lab room with all the products and stuff. And so, but it's such an open space that I could hear them. It's echoing. Like I could hear you saying this, and we have patients in different rooms, and most of them are black. Like how could you, like, it was just crazy. Like, and so to witness all of that, and you know, my daughter like is half black, so my kids are, right? And so that I took offense to that. So right away, whenever I'm hearing this, I went straight to the phone and I called HR, and I'm like, this is insane. Like, and I told her everything I'm witnessing in this center. I said, this center is going to burn down because of this, this, and this. And that's why you guys are not successful. As soon as they addressed it, it turned around. Like everything started turning around. And the HR happened to be Kundam. Like she was also black. So she was like, Laura, you are my hero. Thank you so much for addressing this and bringing it to my attention, because they were open 11 years before I started. So who knows what all has been done.
I mean, that's just like one example of like how deep racism runs in our country, and that like people don't realize it. And it's like us being people of color, we see it. This is not new to us. But like to white people, like they're just like, oh, what? No way! Like it
doesn't happen.
Exactly, because it is in your mind, you know. And it's I remember in middle school there was an incident where me, one of my Lao friends, and then one of my Hispanic friends, we were like really close group of people, and we ended up getting in trouble and suspended by the principal because this white girl who also happened to live in our subdivision, and she ended up it was so stupid. So it's like, you know how the kids get on the bus, and for some reason it's like you want to be the first one to get on the bus so you can pick your seat, right? And so like, everybody's like trying to like get in, you know, first in the line or whatever. And when the bus doesn't stop right in front of the line, it's like you lose your spot in line. You got to run and to form this new line. And I remember like running into the line and getting in line. And in the previous line, apparently she was like in front of us or whatever. So she ended up like, she had her, she was in band or something. It had her like tuba case or something. And she like shoved it into me, right? To try to get her spot back in line. And I'm like, And so I got back in front of her, be like, I was here first. Like, you know the rules. And then she ran to the principal and like tattled and said, and like, my friends are obviously saying like, you can't do that. Like, you know, like you lost your spot in line, blah, blah, blah. So she ran to the principal's office. I think this was in like 7th grade or something, and like tattled on us. And then we ended up getting suspended. And we did like nothing. Like she was the one who physically assaulted me, but yet here, you know, 3 colored girls are the ones that are getting suspended. Like, that's like that what you're talking about, the invisible racism. That's the only reason why. If it were
Mhm.
anything else, they would have like investigated and like
Yeah.
and actually asked us what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of being like, "Oh, you're the one at fault. You're suspended." And it's just like
Mhm.
little things like that, like growing up, and it's just like very demoralizing and demeaning. Like I remember growing up thinking like I wasn't beautiful because
Oh, you are so beautiful.
I realize it now, but like growing up and everybody around you is white. And I mean, granted, my mom was like super overprotective, so there's no way I would be dating anyway. But like all the guys being interested in like the blonde, blue-eyed girls and like thinking that, because I wasn't blonde and I didn't have blue eyes, that I wasn't,
Aw.
deemed in society as a beautiful person. And that like having a huge effect on like my confidence growing up too.
Yeah.
So
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's just crazy. There's no like exact answer to it, but hopefully our next generation will fix this racism. But because it's not gonna happen like in this like
yeah,
generation. I mean, it might get close to it, but there's still gonna be those instances like last year I actually, oh my gosh, I spoke at the library last month and I mentioned this. I gave the audience this example, but
mhm,
last year, last month was International Women's Month, and
mhm,
I spoke on double bias that us as Asian women
mhm,
face in the corporate world or in anywhere, like as far as being Asian and being a woman, the
mhm,
biases we face the double bias. So last month, I shared an experience that I had last year. So I have my own consulting company. So I was reached out by a former coworker because they were starting a new project with Aspen Dental, or no, Affordable Dentures and Implant, and they needed someone to build out their sales curriculum for the whole entire organization, which is 350 centers. And I was hired for that. I was contracted and hired. We were ready to go, had a start date and everything, and even went through like you have to do a background check and everything because it
yeah,
deals with medical records, deals with clients and stuff. And so did my background check, had a start date, and then now mind you, the only person that knows who I am is the one that referred me because we worked together at Clear Choice, and
okay,
she didn't want anyone else for this project but me. And
mhm,
so she knows how I work. And so I got hired, and then they were like, okay, you're starting on April 19th or whatever.
mhm.
And then they called me out of the blue or message or emailed me out of the blue and said, oh, we want you to talk to the CFO. I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's like a welcome like
Yeah,
meeting, right? Like, oh, he's just going to say hi, like, welcome to the team, da da da. Or, we're so happy, da da da. They called me, and I thought it was a phone call because I've never seen anyone like face to face like this, only on
yeah.
the phone. And so Carol, the VP lady, she called me and said, "Oh, it's supposed to be a video. You have to jump on." So
Oh,
I jumped. Yeah. So I
you
jumped
gave
on.
your girl a heads up.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I jumped on just like the way that was, but they wanted to see my face. You see, Laura Robertson,
Yeah, and
it sounds like a white
yep,
girl.
yeah,
So as soon as I jumped on,
mhm.
that man, I have a screenshot of it. He did not make eye contact with me. He was so uncomfortable. He was like this the whole time.
Oh my gosh,
And he
what?
was like this the whole time talking to me. So I'm just feeling like I'm talking to myself. And then
Right.
he abruptly said, well, I don't have anything else. Do you, Carol? And Carol's like, oh no, Laura, we're gonna call you on Thursday or Friday to, set up everything for your start date and everything. I didn't hear from her. Thursday came, crickets. Friday came, crickets. Finally, I talked to my girl that referred me that wants me to work with her.
Yeah.
Sunday, I talked to her on Sunday. I said, Annie, I said, what's going on? I said that that was the most intimidating interview I've had. I just want you to know. I feel like they saw that I'm Asian and they kind of backpedaled. And I shared this with her. She's white, blonde hair, blue eyes, so she doesn't understand, right?
No,
How
no,
could
yeah.
he be? No, he's not racist. How could he be? He went to Harvard with all the Asians. That's what she said to me. I said, come on. I said, come on, Annie.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
so then she's like, you know what? But I did get a really a disturbing call from Carol on Friday. And I said, what happened? What did she call and tell you? I said, she was supposed to call me. She didn't call me. She called Annie instead and said, yeah, we want to interview some other people. And yeah, like, how do you hire someone? They're getting ready to start. That you see their face, and then oh no, she told Annie, oh yeah, the CFO told me that I needed to reach out to this person.
Wow.
And so we looked this person up, and Annie said, this is the same person, Carrie Lasher, that I told them I didn't want to work with because she doesn't have enough experience and she's only worked 1 year in this kind of where you have 15 years. And
Right.
she was a like hygienist. She didn't
Oh,
have the business background and all the whole extensive
great.
background that I had. And so, but that's what they told Annie, that they're going to seek her out, and she was white.
Wow.
And I said, I know why, Annie. I said, because she's white. She
Yeah.
fits their description.
Yeah.
Go look at their executive board. It's all white
White
people.
people. Yeah.
Well, I said, why do you think they're going to put me in there with them? That's what I said. I'm like, why would they put my picture there with all the white people? I said, you know what? Thanks for sharing that with me. So then I waited and waited. I still didn't get any response. And I already knew this from the inside that they're seeking someone else. So
Yeah.
by Wednesday, I sent them a thanks but no thanks letter. I said, you know what? At this time, please, I would like to revoke my application from moving forward, or my, moving forward. Let me tell you, I don't want to be with you.
Yeah.
And then the crazy thing is, 1 or 2 months later, I get a phone call because apparently the girl didn't work out.
Well, for obvious reasons.
Didn't work out. 1 or 2 months later, I get a call from a director that is from the Chicago area. I've heard such great things about you and that you could turn things around and for these doctors. And I have these doctors that I want you to train. And I said, I don't want to work with your company. They're racist. And that's what I told her. She was like angry. I told her what happened. She was like, wow, I'm angry, but I'm not shocked.
Yes. And that's the sad part, is like, we're all angry, but we're not shocked that it happens.
That's what she said. And she was like, well, we can find a way for you to still work with us. Can you send us a contract? I'll just make it come out of the doctor's budget instead of corporate's budget. We really want,
It's the corporate that's the issue here, clearly.
I'm like, she's like, but I still want to work with you. We'll make it come out of the doctor's budget and not corporate's budget. They won't even know. We'll put it under your company's name. They won't even know it's you. I'm like, all they have to do is go to my website and they'll clearly see my face on there.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and then one last example of what I went through, but this is from my son's standpoint, our children, right? And so my son, Carmelo, and now mind you, I'm on the diversity board for the school board, on the diversity and inclusion committee, because I want to fix what's going on. I live in a rich white neighborhood, right? And so my kids go to rich white schools. And so, they had a committee that I applied for, and I was assigned to the committee board. And so already know the school district's racist, right? Already know, because I'm meeting with them every 2 weeks trying to figure out a solution, but they don't know I'm one of the board members, because, we haven't, they probably know now because I'm on the website, but I took my son there my son is 5 years old, Carmelo,
Mhm.
and at that time he was like 4 and almost turning 5. He was 15 days from being able to be in kindergarten.
Okay.
And there was a way for him to test in. He can test in
Mhm.
to be in kindergarten. So I said, okay, I want to sign him up for that. So I connected him with the test, and I took him in. We saw the caseworker at the door, and I gave the caseworker my son. She's like, here,
Mhm.
fill out this form. And then I went and sat down because it was COVID. So I had to sit outside on the bench. I
Mhm.
sat down, and what sparked my interest was that it asked for my race or for his race. Like, what
Yeah.
does that have to do with him going into kindergarten?
Yeah.
So, like, and then others,
Mhm.
like, does he know what a title of a book is? Does he have siblings who live there? Like, social work questions.
Mhm.
And so when he came out, I asked the social worker, how did he do? And the social worker's like, he did great. He answered every question that I had on there. And so, but the person that makes the final decision is the principal. So you'll hear from her by June 3rd. So June 3rd, I didn't hear from her. Couple weeks later, I got a mail that said he failed everything,
What?
even though the social worker told me,
You
oh yeah,
yourself. Yeah,
even
like
though the social worker told me he did great, we probably see him next year, but it's not my decision. She said it's up to the board and the principal. She's like,
Mhm.
so don't quote me. And so I was really angry and confused. Like, why did he fail all these categories? So I reached out to the social worker, like, oh yeah, but in a way we're supportive. Like, I
Yeah,
want to support him. Let me know what he did wrong so I could fix it. Can I
right.
have the report that you made? So she sent me that report. And pretty much she said the same thing,
Yeah.
that he pretty much passed everything, but the principal failed, 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 failed. I didn't even have the strength or the energy to fight at that time. They were calling me because I complained to
Yeah.
my diversity director. So
Mhm.
he brought it to their attention. I'm like, if I'm not even gonna fight it because all they're gonna do is deny it. And
Mhm.
I said so I just didn't even fight that battle. But I know why. She saw that I put black on there.
Yeah. It's exhausting. You're
It's so
like it's
exhausting.
like all these yeah, these events, they happen so frequently, but it's like, yeah, you really have to, like, pick and choose your battles because you only
Yeah.
have so much energy to give to everything, right? And it's
Well,
like, how much do
I
you
wrote
like?
about my journey in my book, because my book, The $40 in a Dream, it's the subtitle is Breaking Through the Bamboo Ceiling.
Yeah.
So I share all of that, all those kind of stories of how I went from, that to walking away from $250,000 salary because
Mhm.
I wanted to pursue my dreams of helping other people like us that like came from the struggles. I want them to realize their dream. Like, so I walked away December 2019. I was making about 213,000 that year.
Wow.
And I was just like, whatever. I got to help other people. I have a bigger mission to go, to do.
Yeah.
So
But it's so important and stuff like that. It's
it's
just
so
like, it's
important.
priceless.
It is
So,
so important.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no price tag to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's why I started my company so that I can help other people build and develop and try to help them reach their potential. Because
Well,
I was once there was a single mom. I was, I was struggling through high school and all of this stuff, but then I still overcame those obstacles and I was still going from a struggling single mom to almost getting evicted to
mhm.
to running Bramblewood to running housing places, going from an almost failed high school student
Yeah.
to to coaching doctors.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
Uh,
thank
I
you.
appreciate you. All the work
Oh,
that
you
you're doing is
too. I'm
amazing.
so like excited and happy and um just ready to hear you're going to make such a huge difference, and we're going to make sure you make some headlines so other people can also fulfill their dreams. Like, if they know that, wow, someone that looks like me did it
Mhm.
even with all of the struggles, then I know I can. So
Yeah.
that's what I would hope that your story would bring to
I
to the
hope so
people that
too.
can see you. Like, I'm just envisioning the magazine layout already right now. Like, Lina, in spite of all of her challenges, like,
I know.
persevered. So I'm gonna need a picture of you in your surgeon uniform, and then you could send me like regular pictures as well. And then whatever picture, if you go look at the magazine, herstorymatters.com,
Okay.
that you'll see like kind of example of how I lay out the magazine and the stories and stuff. That way you know kind of what pictures you want to send me. And then if you could, I'm going to be reviewing our video and then using some of this, what we discussed, also on the magazine. But if you could, when you have time, I know you're working like 70 hours a week, but if you have time in between, maybe within the next couple of weeks, if you could do like a short summary of write up of a little bit of what we talked about and anything else you'd like to share in the magazine, then I can use that as well and add to it.
Okay. Is it like is it going to be like Q&A format or like
Whatever you write out, I'll put the question.
okay.
Yeah.
Or if you could like just give me a list of questions and then I can just answer it to like what you think would be good to put in there. I think that'd be a little bit easier for me.
Okay.
Just because
Well,
it's
why don't you if when you're ready, just go look at the different questions that are on the last article.
Okay.
That we ask the other participants. This one is a special edition, so it can be whatever we want to make it.
Okay.
Whatever it ends up being, but this is like a special Lao edition. But the regular subscription will give you an idea of what I've done in the past.
Okay.
And how it looks like, and this goes global.
That's crazy.
This goes global. This magazine. This is a magazine based out in London.
Okay.
It's a nonprofit women's advocate magazine. So we advocate women's stories all across the globe.
Wow. That's amazing.
And you're going to be highlighted.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So
that's
exciting.
So intimidating. So that's so intimidating.
No, it's not. Get used to it, girl. Get used to it. And you know what? I felt the same way too. Like before my book came out, do you know, like I held on to my book for like 3 years.
Really? After it was finished?
After I finished, because in my mind, I kept talking myself out of it because the way we grow up is you don't show yourself. You don't, you don't, da, da, da.
Humility,
you know what I mean?
Be humble. Yeah, don't go
be
out
humble.
there.
Don't show. Yeah, so that's the mindset we were raised in. And so I had to overcome that. And I have to think to myself, my story is not for me to keep. My story is for others to hear so that it may inspire and change someone's life. So that's what I had to come to grips with, because I had this book 3 years ago.
Wow.
And I never published it. It just went live last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I was able to like add a little bit of my recent experience into the book. But yeah, it's been written like 3 years ago. I had the same mindset, like, oh, that's intimidating. Oh, I don't want people to talk about me. Oh, I don't want people to see me, but you got to get used to it. It's not for you. It's for other people.
Yeah,
it's for them to save lives and for them to push and do what you did to climb to the top, because it's not easy. How we got where we are is not easy. And so they have to want it hard enough. And by hearing our stories that they can do it, perhaps it'll give them that ounce of hope to push to become that doctor, to push to become that lawyer, to, whatever they dream of, to just do it, so.
Yeah, I just hope, it definitely is worth sharing if that is going to inspire other people to achieve.
Yes, it is. Yes. And talk to your mom, see if she wants to interview with me, and then we'll set something up whenever she's free.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you.
Do you have any, first of all, do you have any last words that you would like to share or tell with the audience?
Well, first, thank you so much for giving me this experience. It was great. I think a lot of times I'm so, in this like rat race of achieving things, or trying to, reach the next goal, that I forget to like reflect on like how far I've come.
Mhm.
And so doing something like this and realizing like, oh my gosh, I've gone through so much. And I think it's like important for us
Yeah.
to take time to reflect on that and be grateful for that. And then be proud of ourselves too, because like you're saying, this is not easy. It's not.
Mhm.
There's a lot of hurdles that we have to jump through that most people don't, just based on how we look and where we come from. And we have to take those wins whenever we can. So.
Yes, definitely. And I am so happy that you agreed to come on. We're so inspired by your story, and we just know that it's going to make an impact. Keep
Um,
shining, keep reaching for the stars, keep being that mentor, keep being that advocate that you are. Okay. And
yeah,
then keep going.
yeah. If you
All
know
right.
of anybody who wants to go into medicine or want to do
Okay.
surgery, like feel free to give them my contact information.
Awesome.
I love trying to help people out to get
To
to
be that person that you wish you had.
exactly.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yay. All right. We're going to end. Thank you.